the master plan. I was just gonna go back here and say, we have, this logo came about in November when we formed Thrive Lab Tahoe in this space. The EIC organization has been around for, Priya,
Well, informally 6+ years, formally about 4.5 years.
yeah, since 2017, I think we
Yeah.
established, and we had a third person involved when we established, and he's not with us anymore, sadly, but we have luckily been able to add new members with Bill and Demetria most recently, and where's
Laura's here.
There she is, okay, thank you. And then we have the incredible crew of the Design Lab team that has really made this possible to even be here today, and a lot of them are manning the stations and having fun. Thrive Town came around as a concept when we realized that this should be not just a one-off thing, it should be a network of things. Oh yes, can you now see better? Now can you see? And Eric's known about our this initiative for a while because the P16 Council of Washoe County, Priya and I were involved with them for a long time, and we realized that when we tried to go after a $10 million grant in 2015-16, we got to semifinals for this innovative high school design that we had, but we couldn't get the final win because we didn't have the community of support, the districts, the state. Everyone kind of had to be on board for the kind of innovation that we were proposing to do with the $10 million. Turns out the president of the UNR was really excited about it, President Johnson at the time. And he's like, yeah, talk to my dean of the College of Ed. Unfortunately, the dean of College Ed wasn't quite into it. Like, he didn't really want to be at the helm of something as ambitious as we were kind of putting out there. And so we stepped back and regrouped and said, okay, we need an education innovation collaborative. We got to build the energy of collaboration so that we can make it from a bottom-up thing and not count on sort of a top-down state or district making like the innovation happen. It's going to have to be grassroots, and that's what Ken Robinson has told us. And that's actually one of the quotes that Demetria brought forward. Is like, do you remember the quote that Ken Robinson had in the
I wish I did, but I don't actually,
Yeah.
to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But I do know Ken Robinson,
He said-
and Ken Robinson is all about making sure that the people who are involved in it the most are the ones who get to build it and are
And it's all about
becoming
holistic.
impacted by it, exactly.
Yes,
It's in one of those slides.
it is one of these slides.
It's
So
a little
this
bit long, which is why I don't remember.
And this is the deck that blessed Demetria had joined us a few weeks ago. I think it was only like a few weeks ago. But she immediately took our graphics that was kind of outdated and my style of communication is way too intense. And she simplified it and just said, we're here to engage young people in real world projects that unleash their passions and empower their potential to develop their competencies needed to thrive in this new world. And a lot of people might not know what Web 3.0 is, but that's the metaversal future, right? Everything's going to be both digital, physical, and blended in ways that we can't even conceive of it right now. And so our philosophy is to go through this is the Ken Robinson quote, the world is going through revolutionary changes. We need a revolution in education too. It is coming, as it must do, from the ground up. That's what we're doing here, in a nutshell. So we are the change. What is it Gandhi said? Be the change.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
That we want to see in the world. So yes, that is our mission. And we know that there's a lot of challenges in the education field. Nobody needs to be reminded of how challenging it is that we don't even graduate kids ready for the 21st century because we're using criteria that's 50 years old, maybe even 100 years old. The employers are desperate for kids that have new skill sets. Not new, but they're just more holistic. They're critical thinking, they're collaboration, they're the computer savvy capabilities. They need to be able to create something new, not just follow orders like a robot can do. So if we're gonna become robot proof in education, We need creativity. We need design thinking. We need them to be able to think for themselves and do it with other people effectively. So and the social emotional piece has been hugely highlighted by COVID. These kids are suffering. The rates of hopelessness, depression, suicide have been growing dramatically in the last years, even before COVID. And why is that? Because they don't feel that they have a place. They don't know what their contribution and value is. And they're facing a world with increasing challenges that are existential, like global warming, like pandemics.
There are things that we don't really know what's gonna happen, right? So there's a certain skill set when you have an undetermined future. And that's what
Adaptability and thinking to the future. What do you call it? Future forward. At all times. And that's the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset that we've got to shift out of. And so, the daunting reality is that less than 20% of Nevadan students are considered college and career ready to literally be able to succeed, meaning to make it through the freshman year of college and not drop out because they can't cut it. So, we know at the UNR, it's doing a great job. It's a tier 2 school, tier one?
It's a tier one.
It's a tier 1 because it's research and everything, but the retention rate is still 50-something%. Do you know the latest data, Eric, on that?
I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not good, and unfortunately, the community colleges is lower. It's like between 25 and 30%. So we have a lot to do.
And most students would love to graduate high school being career ready, because even if they're going to college, they often have to pay their way.
Exactly.
And we're not giving them that opportunity.
That's right. And so what is the solution? We gotta give them the education they need and deserve. 21st century thriving goals. Individualized career development, not one size fits all, because we know people are not standard boxes and widgets. They're unique individuals with passions and talents that are being untapped right now in our system. So that's where we came with the selfpreneur model, which was figure out who you are, how you're gonna become your best person in the world. How are you gonna bring something to the world that only you can bring and that affects the positive sense of community, the well-being of others in the world. And so that means real world projects. Get dirty with hands-on problem solving. These kids are ready. Demetria's son, I've had the honor of, he's only 10 years old, I've had the honor of spending 2 days with him, and he's already taught me how to form your own country, how to become an what's he called it in the house?
And his own independence.
Yeah, he's gonna become an
Sovereign
independent,
nation.
sovereign nation inside their house.
Wow.
And he has a proposal in a folder that he presented to me. He's like,
Contract, I have to sign a
contract. So
Treaty.
he also is an expert on World War II and what the causes of the Ukrainian crisis are.
And he's only 10?
He's only 10.
That's unbelievable.
Where is he now?
He should be here.
Yeah, he's downstairs, self-directing in the podcast room somewhere. But I think that the real, what Mary is really pointing to, and I'm so passionate about this, is because I'm an educator. I've taught for a very, very long time. And so I know that there's a way that you can, pull the curriculum and pull the books and create all the worksheets and create your own projects that you want kids to do as a teacher. And I made the choice after learning about, another way to do learning that really sticks. I made a conscious choice to not do that in our homeschooling approach. And he has learned so much over the past 2.5 years that we've done it. He's learned far more than I could have ever planned instructionally for him to learn. And so that's really the power of what we're providing in a self-directed project-based environment like Thrive Labs.
How did it grow so much that it was surprising to you?
So the amount of detail that he can talk about World War II, I'm not a history person necessarily, and so if I were to have planned it, there are very particular major events I would have covered. But he knows very particular things about very particular battles because he was really interested in those things. So he dug deeper than he would have in a traditional classroom setting or if I had planned out a lesson or a unit on it. He also made the integration connections. So he actually started with space, really space exploration was his thing. And then obviously within the space race, there's, different countries that are involved and what are the reasons why they are racing to create this, innovation and different rockets and all this sort of stuff. And then that's when he discovered, oh, well, it's, because they want to be able to like
Shoot missiles at each other.
exactly.
Space Wars.
Take over more land. And so then that sort of spurred into World War II. And then, obviously, where we're standing in terms of international relations now with Ukraine. And so now he knows so much about strategy around how countries operate and why they do certain things and why they move in certain positions because of his learning and study around World War II.
Self-directed.
So.
And the other thing, Justice, we called you up here because we were talking about your sovereign nation and we were talking about your, great research. But you also told us yesterday you have a YouTube setup channel in your room.
Yeah.
And can you tell us what do you have set up there?
I have one monitor, my computer, mouse, keyboard.
Do you have a green screen?
I had a background, but not a green screen.
Okay.
Um,
And what's your first channel topic? What's your first topic you're gonna do?
and I'm just doing a lot of random stuff.
Random stuff.
Well, for the YouTube part came about more, that was a slightly separate interest around video gaming, but he wanted to be able to teach other people how to play certain video games. So he would review Splatoon and some of these other video games and then do reviews on how to actually play them.
Yeah, so this morning, he basically went through I don't know, how many apps did you review this morning? 8 different apps to see whether they would be good for use in here. And we came up with a question to ask. So when the kids do breakouts or they do projects in there, they can start to experience the different apps that the kids themselves have reviewed for their quality and for their value-added learning, attributes and their career exploration. Because that's the ultimate goal, is they explore the world with Google Earth, right? Google Earth is a big one.
Yeah.
And history, you love history. Yeah. So if we can get kids immersed in their own learning, activating their curiosities, we teachers, we educators and parents have less stress and work to do because the kids find their passion and they follow it.
Get out of their way.
Get out of their way. That's
It's not that we don't have a role still. We
Oh,
still
you
have
have to provide resources.
we have to
in it.
provide the resources,
Yeah.
i.e. Thrive Labs, right?
Yeah.
And there's an element of critical thinking around the coaches that we'll have, and so really asking the questions that sort of lead them down the rabbit hole a little bit deeper. But we can't expect ourselves as teachers, as this world continues, as educators, as the world moves faster and faster and information evolves, we can't expect ourselves to know everything. So it's really important that we teach kids how to learn new things, because the information is just changing too fast.
And it's going to become redundant. I mean, it's all there. It's all on the. Why should we be learning in schools that traditional schools do? When we have all the content possible, you Google it and you got it all. It's such a waste of time going through that.
And then, you have the luxury here of being able to help the kids explore whatever they're interested in, their passions are. But in the schools, they're mandated what they have to cover. I mean, they have to cover this, that, and the other thing.
Standards based.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet, an element you put up there is low academic standards. And our schools are producing that. So even though you have this curriculum, students aren't mastering it. But if you have a more open curriculum, they have to master. They have to read. They have to write. They have to have the structure that they have to keep their feet to the fire.
because they're going to present their information, like at Tahoe Expeditionary Academy, which is where Ken has been teaching, and I know that you guys taught over there too. It's all about them taking ownership, and because they know they're going to share it with their peers in their community. So we got to bring that into this whole community-based learning, thriving thing. Do you have any comments about where we are, Ken, on this?
How much time do I have? Yeah, well, I was just seeing, all the different connections. I mean, I consider myself an accidental educator because my son after being in school, traditional school, for like pre-K through first, came home and said, you know, if there's 12 more years of this, what's the point of life? And we're like, oh, we need to do something different.
Wow,
And
it's a young age to say that.
Yeah, and so we started getting involved with homeschooling, and you know, read a bunch of books, you know, from Albie Camus to Piaget to everything, and like understanding that you know, kids are naturally curious, and if you like create a stimulating environment and give them opportunities to do interesting things, then they'll get that intrinsic motivation. They'll have voice and choice in what they're doing, and use that edu-speak agency in it. And so if you want to develop these, you know, skills of communication and collaboration, give them experiences where they need to communicate and collaborate.
And get the
And-
feedback constantly. Am I doing that well? Maybe I messed up with that. How do I get better?
And so, you know, if you want to go for intellectual rigor, there's a book by John Maeda and Sarah Fine that was a comprehensive study of high schools in the United States, and they looked at all kinds of different models of high schools. The big comprehensive high schools, the IB schools. They looked at
The STEM type.
KIPP type schools. And so one of the things that they found is that the after school programs like sports and theater tended to be the ones that were most engaging. And the thing that they took away from this is basically like, they are very much like in sports and in theater, you're playing the real game that you would do in Broadway or in Major League Baseball, but you're doing it at the developmentally appropriate level, and you can contribute in all kinds of different ways, and it's real, and kids can feel that it's real and it's relevant to themselves.
And real challenges come up in those scenarios too.
Right, so whether you're painting a set or running your lines or learning how to swing the baseball bat.
And is the grade, you know, band having multiple age groups working together, do you think an important piece of that?
Sure, yeah, I mean, because, you know, like the existing